Hi everyone, and welcome back to Coast Connections. I'm Elizabeth Hines, and tonight we're going to give you the buzz on beekeeping. We're going to show you how you can hive off some stress in your life by connecting with honeybees, and the fun behind it, the science behind it, and how it connects people. And to do that this evening, we have a beekeeper with us. Welcome, Peter Lange.
Thank you.
You are the president of the Nanaimo Beekeepers Club.
Yeah, that's correct.
How much fun is that?
That's a lot of fun, and I'm kind of worker bee there.
You are. And
That's
you're also
what I
a
do.
worker bee. You're also a prof at Vancouver Island University.
Yeah, an
by
instructor
day.
in the marketing department. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So, Peter, how did you come to find the joy of beekeeping?
Well, I moved to Vancouver Island. I was looking for doing something new, and it was actually my wife who started it.
Mm-hmm.
And so slowly I got more and more into it, and I got completely hooked by the time I got to know more about it. So I have only been into beekeeping for 6 years, which makes me kind of a beginner in the big scheme of things, but I'm enjoying it and I'm passionate about it.
Very nice. And I thank you so much for all the wonderful props that you brought us tonight. We've got a smoker, we've got some honey products, we've got a pot of honey for Winnie the Pooh size there. We've got some mead, which is making a comeback, isn't it? And of course a honeycomb. So let's talk a little bit about some of these amazing bee facts when I was doing my research for the show. Honeybees have to gather nectar from 2 million flowers to make 1 pound of honey. And in their lifespan, one bee will make 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in the 6 weeks that they live. That's amazing. And they have to fly 90,000 miles or 3 times around the world to make 1 pound of honey.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then you look at it and you go like, well, how can, sometimes you go like, well, this is going to be $8 now, right? So no, it takes a lot of effort of the bees to do this. Now, how they do this is by being in numbers. So they have, a beehive has many bees, and here in this area, let's call it 20 to maybe 40,000 bees.
In one
and
hive.
Everybody is chipping in.
And you brought a hive with you tonight. That's the size of one hive. And you said how many bees? 20 to 30,000?
Well, in winter, it differs because they develop different. It could be up to 40,000 bees here on Nanaimo or Vancouver Island. In other parts of the country, could be even more bees. And they go out and they split up the work. Some bees stay at home and do the housekeeping. Others looking after the brood. Others are going out and finding the nectar and the pollen to feed the family.
So within a hive, you have one queen, and you have drones and worker bees.
Yes.
What's the role of each of those? And how do you get to be queen?
Well, how do you get to be queen? Okay, so let's start with the queen. The queen's role is not what most people think, which is to rule the hive. The queen's role is to lay eggs and be the one that actually helps the hive to survive. The worker bees, I call them the girls, they actually look after the entire interior of the hive. They rule the hive in a way. They organize it. They help the queen. They split up the work. They raise the brood. They go out and forage. And so their job really is to make that super organism, which this is, to make it work. The drones, they are also important because they're the one that fertilize the queen. Most of the time not their own queen, because the queen, when she gets born, she goes out on a maiden flight and she will mate with 20 different drones out there, and then she will come back, develop further, and start laying eggs and be the queen.
Wow, that's quite the role she has there. Yeah.
It is.
And the queen can live up to what, about 5 years?
Yeah, she can live up to 5 years. At the same time, a few of them do. And the reason why that is because the bees decide if the queen is still doing her job properly. So they are simply going to go like, we need you. You're so important for our survival. If we have doubts about your ability to lay eggs or keep us going, we better think about replacing you. Huh? And the way they replace a queen is by actually taking a normal egg, which she has laid, and giving it special food. And that's royal jelly. So the queen, so they now go like, we need a new queen. Let's take a couple of eggs that would normally turn into a worker bee, and let's kind of promote them to queen status. And they do this by enlarging the cell and giving them special food. And then they seal it up, and after 16 days, there has a queen comes out. And the first queen who comes out of these many cells is going to go around and kill the others. So there can only be one queen. And then she goes and does her maiden flight, come back, and keeps the hive going.
Peter, how long can a hive last?
A hive can actually last forever, because what happens is they rejuvenate all the time. They go and okay, the superorganism of 20,000 bees, in winter it has much fewer, a couple of thousand. In summer it builds up. And by doing this generational change of the queen, etc., it can actually last for a very long time.
Wow. And how much does it cost to start up? Like if I wanted to get a hive in my backyard, that's allowed here on the island, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's particularly in Nanaimo, you're allowed to have up to 3 of these colonies here in your backyard. And you are allowed more. Once you have an acreage, you can have an additional 3. If you want to start beekeeping and you're in a different area, just check with your municipality. The cost differs because you need to buy equipment. You need to make equipment, and that will influence it. You will buy your bees or get them from someone, depending on how your access is there. And I think you should also spend a bit of money on training, because it's not just done by getting a box, putting a few bees in. You need to know how to treat them. So I would say a realistic estimate is somewhere between $250 to $750. Could be more. It depends on how fancy you are in your equipment. It depends on how much training you do and how many beehives you start with.
And the Nanaimo Beekeepers Club is a good place to join, to learn, to get that type of instruction and learn how to become say it for
Apurist.
me. Apurist. Thank you.
Yes. A beekeeper.
Yeah, I like that word.
Or bee lover.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nanaimo Beekeepers Club has been in existence for more than 50 years, and it's volunteer run. And what we do is we educate beekeepers. We have young beekeepers or inexperienced beekeepers, and also very experienced beekeepers in the club. And it's a really nice atmosphere. We always have an educational part and also some fun part or science part in our meetings. And the other thing we do, which I think is really important for beekeepers, which you can't get on YouTube or some other ways, is we offer a buddy system. So we offer a way of you learning how to work with your bees, because it's one thing seeing it in a book or seeing it on a YouTube video or something. It's another one opening your hive and go like, what is this? And that's when we bring experienced beekeepers with new beekeepers together with a bit of mentorship and help. And that's run by Christine, one of our sort of people on the exec there.
Nice. I like how bees are helping to connect humans.
They do.
Yeah, very much so.
They do. There are many different ways of how they connect. So one of the nice things about beekeeping is everybody's passionate about their bees. It doesn't really do what else you do in your life. The kind of icebreaker question is, how are your bees doing? Yeah, and then everybody is kind of talking about that. Or I would like to give another example. There is even on a social level in Vancouver, in East Hastings, there is a community garden, and there is a cool organization called Hives for Humanity, and they are connecting homeless people and drug-related problems, etc., with the police there. So now they have bees in their garden, but also the local police station has bees. And once of a sudden, there's a police RCMP officer, and there's somebody from that community, and they start talking to each other. Well, how are your bees doing? And so it moves from, hey, I'm here, you're here, to well, maybe I know more about bees than you do. And so it's a super cool way of also having a social impact. And I think it's a very social innovation kind of project. It's just one example of many.
Yeah, and giving them purpose.
For sure,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which is so important.
Yeah, and it's heartwarming when you talk about these people that say, some of them are literally commenting, the bees have given me purpose and it has saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It is.
That's wonderful. Let's just go back to the hive for a minute. That hive that you brought in, how much honey would that produce in a season?
It depends. Obviously, it is like anything in agriculture. It depends on the weather, the conditions, etc. It can be a huge variety. So most of the time where I do my beekeeping, which is here in North Nanaimo, I get about 25 to 50 pounds from a hive, but other people get 75, sometimes maybe 100, and somebody else might get nothing or just very little. When we say we get honey, it also means that we can't take, or we don't take all the honey from the bees, because they're not making it for us actually. They make it as winter storage to survive. So one has to be also responsible in what you take. This is a sustainable hobby, but that's roughly how it's going to be.
And you brought in one of the frames. Let's just have a look at that.
Yeah, let's look at a frame. So this is something that we use. That's what you find in here. Each of those boxes has 10 of these frames, and it's like the house for the bees, or a little room. So they make these cells, and you see how beautiful they are, these hexagons.
It's an engineering miracle that they can make those cells. I mean, look how precise that is. It's stunning.
They are super precise, and also they are slightly angled so that the honey doesn't run out.
Oh, for goodness sake.
They are so smart about this. And so they build those. All we do as beekeepers is we give them this frame and probably a foundation, so like an encouragement to do this. And then they use it for all sorts of purposes. So this cell what you see here is there's a bit of honey in there. So why don't we start with you taking a little taster here? Just stick your finger in.
Just in this
just push it in.
Ooh.
Yeah, do you see the honey coming out?
Wow.
Here we go. So this is a small example.
Is that ever good? Wow.
Glad you like it.
That is rich.
And so here they put some honey in, but next door they might put an egg in, and they raise their brood, or they use it to put some pollen in, because they also need pollen to feed the brood. So this is really a multi-purpose house, or little chambers. And on a little frame like this, there are a couple of thousand little cells, and they use them as they wish. So they are using this for all sorts of purposes, and this might be for honey today, and in 2 weeks' time we might see brood in here. They really change the usage to whatever they need it to be.
Now, Peter, how do you go about extracting the honey?
So as you can see here, the bees cover it up. We call this capped honey because they put a little cover on there, and in there this honey can last for a very long time. In fact, we know that somebody actually found 2,000-year-old honey in a comb in Egypt, and it was still good.
Just a second. 2,000-year-old honey, and it was still good?
Yeah, I
who
haven't tasted it.
Who would try 2,000-year-old honey?
I don't know.
I'd like to meet that person.
Me too.
And are they still alive?
Good point. I don't know.
That's pretty cool, though.
It's pretty cool, though.
Because
So
Cleopatra, she also used honey as part
did.
of her beauty regimen. Yes.
it's been around for such a long time, and it's been a treasure and a treat for people, because don't forget, in the Middle Ages, etc., this was the only there wasn't sugar, so this was actually what people use for sweetening. So how do we extract the honey? What we basically do, there are a couple of different ways to do it. You take this and you scrape it open. Yeah.
Just hold that up a bit.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. You take this and you scrape it open, and then we put it in a spinner, and then we spin it out. But you can also do it another way. You just open it up and you let it run out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that takes a bit longer, but that's also a way to do it. Most of the time we like to spin it out, and that's one of the things we also offer in the club. You can actually rent an extractor. You don't have to buy one. So all of these are little benefits of being part of a beekeeper community.
Nice.
Bit of honey dropped on there, and just need to taste that.
Yeah. Lucky you.
Can't let it go to waste.
No, we can't.
We know how hard the bees worked for this.
Exactly. Exactly. And,
Yeah.
so the larger than worker bees, the male honeybees, are also drones, have no stinger and do no work. All they do is mate.
All they do is mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not totally true. I think we are a little unfair there. They also help to keep the brood warm. So they're also a warm body. But other than that, they really focus on being available for being out there and mating with a queen.
Now, the smoker, what would you use that for?
Yeah, the smoker is a piece of equipment that we use in order to, when we go into our hives, we just blow a bit of smoke in there. So the way we would do this, we would just go in the entrance and maybe here up and put a bit of smoke in the hive, not too much. And what this does is it calms the bees down. When we say it calms the bees down, it's a distracting effort. It's distracting them from what we are doing in the hive, because they think it's doing two things. First of all, they think, I normally live in a tree trunk. When I smell smoke, there could be fire.
Yes.
So I'm trying to maybe I have to get ready to move out. And what they would do is they would start observing that very closely, and they would also go into their honey storage here. The bees would open this and they would fill their little honey stomachs with honey just in case they have to move out as an emergency. So that keeps them busy.
Yeah.
And so we can start looking at it, checking for bee health, doing some other stuff in there. The other thing it does is the bees communicate to each other through scent. And so the smoke also breaks that communication channel a little bit.
So it just sort of calms everything down.
Calms it down, yeah. I personally don't use it too much. I happen to have very calm bees, docile bees, and so I don't use much smoke anymore. It really depends on the hive and the colony. Once you have a few and you take a few notes, you know your bees. So these ones, I better do it with smoke. This one, oh no, I don't need it there. Or on a good day or a bad day, like all of us, they have grumpy days and they have calm days.
And I learned in BC here that beekeeping is a billion-dollar industry here in BC, and 10 million of that is honey, and a larger proportion of that is bees for pollination, and pollinator bees, which are used for the fruit crops, the blueberries, cranberries, all the BC fruit trees. So they rent out the colonies to the farmers?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. So a commercial beekeeper these days, many of them make more money from pollination than they make from honey or wax or other bee products. And this is because bees account roughly for 1/3 to 50% of all the food we have on our table. They are involved in this as a pollinator.
Yes.
So part of the more industrial type of food production is you also need to have a sufficient number of honeybees nearby to help you with pollination, and that's how this is done. Now, the reason why we do this with honeybees is, first of all, yes, they are suitable for pollination, but also, as you can see, mankind has found a way to actually put them in a box.
Yes, yeah.
So if you were a moth or a butterfly, which could also be a pollinator, they are much harder to move from A to B. And also we've been doing this for hundreds of years. So this is the way it's done for a lot of pollination.
And for people that may not be able to or don't want to have a colony of bees in their yard, they can also be pollinator supporters, right?
For sure.
What role can they play that way, Peter?
Well, very important, because pollinators are under threat everywhere we go, and this has to do with how we create our environment, how we do our gardening, etc. So pollinators need flowers. So one of the things you can do, you can go on our website, NanaimoBeekeepers.com, for example, you find a list of plants that are really good for pollinators in general, not just for bees, but clover, for example, would be really good. It could be helpful not to cut your lawn all the time. Bigger cities are also putting in like pollinator corridors, because pollinators want to move between areas of the city, and this has become very difficult in many areas, and now they are doing that.
And by pollinators, we mean like butterflies, moths.
Yeah, those are other bees.
Yeah, other bees.
Other bees.
Bats.
Yes, bats as well. Yeah, so there are many ways of yeah, there are many animals there. There are many species out there that do their role in pollination. Normally, there's a connection between, well, this kind of pollinator is looking after this kind of plant. But in general, encouraging all of those, also bumblebees, yeah, all sorts of other bees.
Because honeybees specifically is what we're talking about, but there's bumblebees and
mason bees are quite well known by a lot of
bees.
people. And in BC alone, there are more than 300 different species of bees, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I can't tell you, I couldn't tell you about 290 of those because they are hard to find, they're hard to see. But there are really many different bees out there.
So Peter, what if, let's talk about swarming. First of all, what is a swarm? How is it formed? And is it honeybees or is it bumblebees? Or?
Yeah. Most of the time when you see a swarm, it is actually honeybees. Why do they swarm? So I said earlier that the bees are using that hive or their colony, and they grow. The queen can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day. That means you have 2,000 more bees coming in day after day after day after day with a certain time delay. Now, eventually, they grow out of space. And if the bees feel like, oh, we have cool conditions, cool in the sense of good conditions, nice, good enough food, good weather, eventually they go like, we're going to outgrow this. And here's something which I really like about swarming. It's the old queen that moves out. The old queen takes about half the bees and a really big amount of the honey storage. And she says, I had my time in this hive. We're going to go and move out and find somewhere else. So when you see that beautiful swarm hanging on a tree or somewhere, this is just their, hey, we have moved out. We haven't figured out yet where we're going to go permanently. Let's gather for a little while before we move on.
So they're homeless.
They're homeless.
Yeah.
But they created it by themselves. And so the swarm, the other thing that is cool about the swarm is before they leave, they care for the remaining bees. They will make a new queen for the bees that stay behind. So that also the youngsters have a really, really good chance of survival. And this is how one colony becomes two.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we use that also in beekeeping.
And so what should a person do if they see a swarm?
Yeah, first of all, the good news is most of the time the bees are, or they're not aggressive at all. So there's no need to be too afraid of them. First of all, they have a lot of honey in their stomach. So they are like flying around with after Christmas dinner all filled up. So they are busy with that. And secondly, they're really just gathering, trying to find a new place. So what you should be doing is, it would be nice if you could contact us. We have a helpline, and if we establish that it's honeybees, we are very happy to come out and try and catch them for you. But more like the other thing that happens is just leave them because they're going to move on. So this stage of where they are, what they do is they gather there, and then they send bees out to find a new home. They are essentially, they are homeless, but they go like, we have honey, so we have money, we can rent somewhere else. But they're trying to find that new place. And once they find it, the whole swarm is just going to move in, and it can be another box like this that they found somewhere, unlikely. They're going to find a hollow tree, they're going to find a crack in the rocks. So that becomes their new home. And it's very smart.
Yeah. And we have to talk about the Day of the Honeybee. It's an official day of the year. It's May the 29th. And what I liked about this when I learned about it was it's to honor Sir Edmund Hillary, one of the most famous beekeepers. And that was the day that he ascended Everest in 1953. So the Day of the Honeybee is that date in his honor. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and the Day of the Honeybee is something that we as a club also are aware of, and we have even worked with the city of Nanaimo in the past. I can just show you this here. So even the city of Nanaimo has made a proclamation back in May 29. This one is from 2017, and they're saying, Honeybees are facing dramatic declines in population across North America and the world due to habitat loss, pests, and pesticides. And citizens of Nanaimo can help support a bee-friendly environment by abstaining from using pesticides, provide habitat for bees, by planting native flowering plants, provide a home for bees, and by joining a local beekeeping group and becoming an urban beekeeper. So yes, we are also piggybacking on that.
That's nice. And one of the things that your club also provides, besides all the teaching and everything, is you've got a bee library with all kinds of interesting books about bees that members can sign out. Yeah. And I think you said your membership fee is very steep, $15 a year?
Yeah, we've increased it to $15. No, it's $15, and for that what we do is there's 10 meetings per year. You get access to a really good library. You get, more importantly, I think you also get access to a lot of very knowledgeable beekeepers. It's a lot of fun going there. We also provide that buddy system, and it's a really nice social activity as well. Yeah, it's $15 for a single member, and we also have like a family or couple membership that is $20, if I remember correctly. So we try to keep it affordable. And our main purpose is really education and promoting beekeeping.
And beekeeping in itself seems like a very meditative thing to be doing with the bees, and yet you have that other social connection with the club and with other beekeepers, so that's really nice. Peter, thank you so much for coming in and bringing all these wonderful products with you. I love your passion for the bees. That's very evident. They're lucky to have you, and we are as well. Okay. So I encourage viewers to look on their website, Nanaimo Beekeepers, and go to one of their meetings and learn a little bit more about beekeeping, and perhaps even have a colony in your yard or become a pollinator supporter as well. Thanks for joining us on Coast Connections. We'll see you next time.